My name is Peter Eddy and I'm an engineer in the Freight and Heavy Vehicles team at ARB Group. I'm here with Philip Roper, who is also from the Freight and Heavy Vehicles team. I had the pleasure of working with Austroads to develop the updated edition of the Turning Templates Guide as the project technical leader. This webinar focuses on the updates and changes made in the 2013 edition of the Design Vehicles and Turning Path Templates Guide. It is not intended as being a description on how to use the templates in road design. However, further training on how to use the templates can be made available if there is enough interest. You can register your interest at training@arb.com.au. So first off, I would like to open a poll, pretty much asking whether you're a current user of the Design Vehicles and Turning Templates Guide. You have three answers to choose from. So yes, I'm a current user. No, I'm not a current user, but I've used them in the past. And no, I don't and haven't used the guide. Anyway, I'll leave the poll open for a little while. As a lot of you will probably know, the turning templates are a useful tool in designing intersections and granting vehicle access, and are one of the most downloaded Austroads publications. All vehicles using the road network must be able to safely negotiate intersections without damaging other vehicles, buildings and infrastructure. As the road network consists of a hierarchy of roads with different functions, it is necessary for road practitioners to have access to swept path information for a range of design vehicles. That's in order to provide appropriate and safe access. The swept path is the road area covered by the outermost and innermost part of a vehicle making a turn. So this guide has been developed to assist designers in pretty much doing all those things I just mentioned. It contains user information and a guide which covers the basis of the turning templates and road hierarchy. It also contains drawings of the design vehicles that we've used, and it also contains the turning templates themselves. So the Austroads design vehicles have been produced to provide consistency when choosing an appropriate design vehicle for intersection design throughout Australia. The design vehicles included in the guide provide guidance to cover most of intersection designs out there, and individual intersections should be designed and checked according to the vehicles expected to be negotiating these intersections. And these design vehicles range from a 5.2 metre passenger vehicle all the way up to a 53.4 metre A triple. The turning path templates themselves are plots of the vehicle wheel path and the path traced by the other relevant points on the vehicle or load. They show the swept path envelope resulting from various angles of turn, so from a 30-degree turn right up to a 180-degree turn, at a particular radius ranging from 6.7 metres up to 30 metres, measured to the outside front steer wheel. Thus the templates include the critical wheel path and the swept path of the extremities of the vehicles. The various turn radii given reflect an acceptable range of turning speeds in normal traffic operation. Now I'll just see the results of the poll just to see what people have replied. So as expected, the majority are current users, with 61% saying that, and 23% aren't current users but have used them in the past. All right. So I'll just briefly go through the history of the turning templates. So this 2013 edition of the guide is actually the third revision. The guide was first produced in 1985 by NASRA, which is the National Association of Australian State Road Authority, and that was then revised in 1995 by Austroads, who are the successor of NASRA. The 1995 guide update reflected changes in the vehicle dimensions in the meantime and included a number of larger vehicles. The guide was then further revised in 2006 and reflected further changes in vehicle dimensions since 1995 and also provided a more detailed user guide. So the largest source of feedback and identification of these issues was from the users of the guide, so pretty much yourselves, with that feedback used in determining the changes to be made in the 2013 edition. So a number of issues have been identified over the years, and 3 of them are shown here. So the first one was that the B triple combination included in the 2006 guide didn't meet the PBS level 3 low speed swept path requirement that it would be expected to. Now that might sound a bit confusing at the moment, but I'll go into that in a bit further detail in a little while. Therefore the B triple needed modification to meet this requirement while still being representative of the B triple heavy vehicle fleet. The turning templates also were of varying formats and non-standard scales, which made them difficult to use in road design tasks, and it was identified that there was a bit of a poor colour choice, the bright green, which made it difficult to see in black and white printing or when photocopying the templates, and they produced poor reproductions. So in the 2013 edition, we therefore made a few changes in order to address these issues. Each of the vehicles was checked against the performance-based standard scheme, and like I said, we'll go into a bit more detail later on. And we compared the vehicle's performance against a low-speed swept path standard from the PBS scheme. 2 vehicles were identified as having poor performance against these standards, against this one standard, and as such were modified to meet this standard while still being representative of the vehicle fleet. And those 2 vehicles were the 26 metre B double and the B triple. We also updated the guide and the templates to reflect information in the Austroads guides which had been produced in the meantime, and this is particularly relevant to the Austroads guide to road design. And as well as that, we changed the template design itself, we modified the colours, we made a consistent scale of 1 to 250, and we also updated some of the notations on the templates. So in order to detail the changes in the 2 vehicles, I'll have to briefly describe the PBS scheme. At this stage I'd like to open a poll, just asking whether you're already familiar with this PBS scheme. And the answers should be reasonably easy to understand. So the PBS scheme is a regulatory scheme which provides for innovative vehicles, which improves productivity while not compromising on safety. So the PBS scheme focuses on how the truck performs rather than what it looks like or weighs, which is the current prescriptive regulation style. ARB currently has 4 PBS assessors, including myself and Phil. There are currently about 14 assessors Australia-wide who create detailed computer-based models or do field testing on these vehicles to determine how the vehicle performs against a number of standards. So I'll just close the poll, and it would seem that most of you haven't heard of the PBS scheme, which is probably not all that unusual, but with 65% saying no, and 25% said they had heard of it, while 10% also thought it was the pharmaceutical benefit scheme. Yeah. And also a reminder that if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them at any time by typing them in the question box. I'll try to answer them in the question time at the end of the presentation. If I can't answer them then and there, I'll get back to you after the presentation. So just a little bit more information on the PBS scheme. So the network access granted to the vehicles that are based upon the vehicle performance, and the vehicle performance is compared against 16 safety standards and as well as 4 infrastructure standards. our study for the update of the turning templates was only really interested in the one standard, which is the low-speed swept path manoeuvre. So the low-speed swept path manoeuvre, or safety standard, is a 12.5 metre radius turn at 90 degrees at 5 kilometres per hour, and pretty much the maximum swept width is measured at during that turn. So each of the vehicles from the 2006 edition was compared against that standard, and with the performance measured against the network access level that the vehicle would be expected to achieve. So 2 vehicles were highlighted during this study, with both the 26 metre B double and the B triple combination having a greater swept path than would be expected. So these vehicles were then modified in order to achieve the performance expected while still being representative of the vehicle fleet. So in order for the vehicles to achieve their expected performance level, small modifications were made. Shown here the 2006 and 2013 versions of the 26 metre B double. So the following changes were made in order to slightly decrease the swept path for the 2013 vehicle. An increase in the prime mover wheelbase of 200 millimetres was made, and a decrease in the prime mover fifth wheel lead by 300 mm. We also then decreased each trailer wheelbase by 250 millimetres. Now, in doing so, we also kept the same gap between the load spaces on the front and rear trailer, and kept a large enough load space sufficient to fit a 20-foot shipping container on the front trailer and a 40-foot shipping container on the rear trailer. The overall length of the vehicle remained the same. The new B triple combination was chosen instead of making changes to the existing, a new B triple combination was chosen instead of making changes to the existing vehicle. The new vehicle was based on a blueprint B triple specification produced by the NTC, or the National Transport Commission, in 2007. The blueprint provides the specifications for a B triple vehicle which meets the level 3 requirements for all of the PBS measures, level 3 being the network access level that a B triple would be expected to meet. The vehicle dimensions were chosen for the turning templates to just achieve the level 3 low speed swept path requirements. In doing so, the overall length of the 2013 vehicle was slightly shorter than the 2006 vehicle, 35.4 metres compared to 36 metres. So I'll just describe a few of the other modifications that we made to the turning templates and the guides. We modified the notes on the turning templates to be in line with the Austroads guides, particularly the guide to the road design. And these comments you can see at the top right of the 2013 template. This has also been done in the user guide document. Each of the PDF templates have been made to a consistent 1 to 250 scale when printed on A3 paper. Well, we hope so, depending on the setup of your printer. But we also added the vertical scale to make sure that when the templates are printed, you can check whether they are to scale. Because, like I said, the printable areas on printers may skew or stretch the printout. We also changed the colour scheme from the bright green to a red and black, which hopefully will enable more replication. And we tested that ourselves a bit and found that it was fine, so hopefully all is good. We also extended the templates to cover a little bit more distance that should be neither really here nor there, but you might as well. And we also added a dashed line indicating the beginning of the turn. So you can download or purchase, if your organisation doesn't have the Austroads subscription, from the Austroads website, provided a link here. Just a reminder that the presentation will be available afterwards to the people who have registered for the webinar, so you won't need to write it down. So as I said previously, the feedback from users shaped the changes made for the 2013 edition, and future editions will be shaped by the feedback from the users of this edition. And that's where you can suggest any changes. So issues, feedback, questions, suggestions can be made regarding the turning path templates via the Austroads website. Provided a link there. My contact details are on the next slide. I can also cover any technical questions that people have, though the preferred method is to go via Austroads, and any questions for which ARB can provide support will be passed on. So that's it in regards to my presentation. We've got 10 minutes for presentation time. Yeah, we've got plenty of time for questions. Plenty of time for questions. So if anyone has any, feel free to put them in. Okay, so Chris Hunt has asked about. Oh, sorry, you've been in communication, Phil.
Yeah, it's Philip Roper here. Yeah, we've just been asked whether there are turning templates in this set for super B doubles or long B doubles, 30-metre B doubles that can carry two 40-foot containers.
And the answer is no.
No.
There is the 25-metre B double and the 26-metre B double in this review. Though, yeah, we'll put that down on the list for future updates, or if there's strong need for it, it might be a quicker update than 7 years.
Yes, I'd say the reason that wasn't included in this instance is that those long B doubles are only part of the PBS scheme in most areas at the moment. They're becoming more common now, but they were certainly not as common as 26-metre B doubles. So that's probably why Austroads thought that they didn't really need to be put in. Now the next question was about the auto-turn software and whether that will be updated with these new templates. I imagine it will be, but we don't make that.
Yeah, don't have any knowledge really of what
auto-turn to whoever makes that, because that's an AutoCAD plugin, I think.
As I understand it.
Don't know who makes that, but they'll be able to use the same templates, I imagine. Okay. Now, we will have to check on how the downloading is working from the Austroads website. Somebody has pointed out that the Austroads website seems to only include the user guide, but not actually the templates. We will need to check that. In fact, I think Peter's going to check it right now.
We'll see if we can get onto the Austroads website here, and we'll see what we say. So.
Anyway. While we load up this website, we'll also go through some other questions. The PBS split path analysis is completed at 5 kilometres an hour, I believe. However, when we did these templates, there were a couple of speeds, weren't there, Peter?
Actually, well, there are indicative speeds, but we found that the poorest performance was done at the low speed. So all the simulations which produced the turning templates were done at 5 kilometres per hour.
So the slower you go, the more space you're going to take up, usually, with the performance on these templates. Now, you would need to log in using our details, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but I can run off and get them if you like. We can have a look. Let me do that while you handle some more of those questions.
Rightio. Yeah, so we've got another question regarding auto track and auto turn. Again, that's not something that we deal with ourselves. Who do we have here? So Nui McGregor here has asked about reversing templates. Reversing templates weren't a focus of this update. They never have been, and as far as I know, they're not on the list. But if there's enough interest in it, well, I suppose that can be updated. I'm not promising anything, of course, but we'll put it down as a suggestion, and if enough people are interested, then they'll be produced. So Philip Yap has asked whether the design parameters will be provided so that it can be modelled in plugins like Auto Turn and Auto Track. So I'm not particularly sure what design parameters you're referring to, Philip, but
I would say the lengths and wheelbases and things.
Well, yeah. Well, each of the design vehicle drawings themselves are in the guide, so you should be able to get them easy enough. Things like friction, maybe. We used a mu value of 0.8 in the simulations, which is similar to asphalt. But despite the indicative speed shown on the turning templates, we still measured that's the old one. That's the old one.
Very good.
Next one down. Yeah. We did it at 5 kilometres per hour.
There's the issue. You can download this PDF which explains how to use it.
So I've just got a comment from Elena Gardner here at Austroads, the publications office, and she says that the templates can be downloaded once the documents are purchased, and members can access the templates for free.
Yes, so there are 2 files there as well. The first one will be just that guide that tells you about the templates and probably provides smaller pictures of them, but this additional download file, which you can probably see there on the screen, it's a zip file that contains all of the template files themselves, so that you have to download that as well, otherwise you won't end up with the actual templates. Hopefully that is accessible to the person who asked that question.
Okay, so just that question about whether the design parameters will be provided. Philip Yap has mentioned that like the lock-to-lock turn parameter.
So how much steer angle you can apply to the vehicle.
Okay.
Well,
I suppose it can be provided. It wasn't going to. Yeah.
It's not part of the help files or anything.
Yep,
that kind of information can certainly be provided.
Yeah.
We can answer you personally if you need that.
So yeah, Philip, send me an email and I'll get back to you with whichever things you're interested in. So who else do we have? ARP have it. Does Austroads have an electronic version of the templates? Yep, that's just the same as what Phil just showed us here.
Yes, there's an AutoCAD file, isn't there, DWG?
Yeah, there should be a version of both in there.
Yes, so somebody's just confirmed for us that they've downloaded the zip file and it does have the DWG files in it. So
Excellent.
The website is working well, that is good. Now, other questions we just wanted to check. Now, there's one here pointing out that the Austroads swept path is for an 85th percentile of turns. So in route assessment, how can a field trial of a vehicle combination be adjusted for this, as the best vehicle and driver is not usually used, so it's not representative? That's an interesting question. Well, basically it means that the dimensions of the vehicles would be at about the 85th percentile, but we've picked roughly representative vehicles. So essentially, if a real truck that was to come along is roughly like those, then you can expect that it will work if you found in the templates that it was going to be okay. There would be a range of possible dimensions for, say, a 26 metre B double, but they all do have to fit into a certain set of restrictions. So they shouldn't be very much different at all from what we've found in these templates. If any of these answers don't fully answer your questions, feel free to keep adding to the text, because we get a download of this at the end and we can respond individually to anybody who hasn't had their question properly answered.
Go with Luke's question.
Okay.
So Luke has asked if there is any clearance included in the templates, or should we allow for that in addition? Is there a recommended clearance, or what clearance is included? So there isn't any clearance included in the templates. There is a comment in the templates themselves. Let's just see if we can zoom in on one of these. Might be able to, will I? Anyway, in the notes at the on this example, the notes is on the top right of the turning template. It says provide a minimum offset of 0.5 metres from the extremities of the vehicle path to the face of a curb, pavement edge or centre line, and ensure this area is kept free of road furniture. So that's where the clearance is, and that 0.5 metre value is from the Guide to Road Design. So we've gone in line with the guide in that comment.
Yeah, that should answer a couple of people's questions actually, because I saw a couple of people mentioning the half metre situation. Here's a slightly different question. Have you dealt with that one yet?
No, I haven't.
So someone here is asking, if the lane width is less than half a metre bigger than the width of the vehicle, or width of the vehicle clearance, when do you start to offset the clearance to the face of curb when starting or finishing a turn? That is a little confusing. I think what that person might mean is if we were on a left lane, for instance, and it wasn't big enough to be half a metre wider than the vehicle, where do we start measuring for there to be enough clearance? I would say you would measure right at the start of the turn manoeuvre, because the road should have half a metre of thickness off its edge to immovable objects anyway, I think.
Yeah.
But we might have to think more about that and get back to you on that, Trevor. What other questions would you like to have a look at here, Peter? There's quite a lot. This is good. You're asking some very good questions in this session, and there are so many of them that we can't answer them all while we're sitting here talking, because they just keep flicking up on the screen so quickly. But we will get to all of them individually and send answers back to you. Now, someone here has said, which software would we recommend for doing complex swept path checks?
Well, we use our own.
Yeah. We have
developed software.
That's right. We have simulation software here at ARB so that we can carry out that kind of thing. So we use a truck simulation program to do all of this. If you have such software, you could use it, but it's not really the kind of thing you would go out and buy just to be able to do a few of these. So really, if you mean complex as in more complex than this type of vehicle, and you need a more complex vehicle, then you're going to have to make up an individual turning template using someone who has a simulator like we do.
Well, I understand that auto turn's reasonably easy to use.
Yeah.
I haven't used it myself, and I'm not quite sure whether you can put in your own vehicles into there. But auto turn or VPath, is VPath available?
I think some people can get VPath. Certainly manufacturers can get VPath.
Yeah. So
VPath is another option. Yeah. But if you're talking about a complex turn, such as trying to get into a gate that's on a funny angle off the road or something, then it's going to get more complicated. Yeah, specialised software is what's going to have to do it. Right. Should people be considering more than 5 kilometres an hour as a vehicle speed at signalised intersections? In general, you would. Vehicles such as trucks should perform a bit better, is that right, Peter?
At higher speeds,
higher speeds. So you're getting a worst case result looking at these templates.
Yeah, so we put the conservative 5 kilometre per hour situation in. If we found in our simulations that if you're at higher speed, it pretty much draws the trailer around so that it follows a path closer to the prime mover. I hope that made sense. So there's no guarantee that a vehicle will travel at 15 to 20 kilometres an hour around a 20 metre radius turn. So we put the conservative 5 kilometre per hour simulation on the turning templates.
And at this point we should thank Jim Turner, who's just contributed an answer about VPath. He says yes, it is indeed available on the Queensland TMR website, so just search for it there. And there's a library of vehicles you can use in it, and you can customise vehicles as well once you've learned how to use it properly.
Thank you, Jim. So,
okay. What else?
Chris Hunter's asked if whether we have a link to the parameter that we used on the PBS website.
So the definition of the swept path measurement, perhaps.
Okay.
Probably. Yes.
So the PBS website is what, www.nhvr.
Let me bring it up here.
Yeah. .com.
.gov. .au. The National Heavy Vehicle Regulator administers the PBS scheme, so if you go to nhvr.gov.au, they have a documents section where you can download all of the PBS rules. And I'll just see if I can find that now because it is recently moved from the National Transport Commission.
Maybe
PBS.
road access?
Road access, performance-based standards, and useful documents or
guidelines
and rules. There we go. So hopefully you can all see what's coming up on my screen at the moment. Here, this link here, the Standards and Vehicle Assessment Rules, November 2008. It's a fairly weighty document, but inside it you will find the low speed turn manoeuvre and the measurements that are used in it. There's about 6 or 7 different measures that come out of the low speed turn test, but the only one of them that we have really used here is the swept path width.
Yep.
To make sure that the vehicles used fit into certain levels of PBS. But that is where you can look at it, at nhvr.gov.au.
Rightio. Derek Wilson has also just provided a bit of an answer to one of the previous questions, and he said that complex paths may be performed in AutoTrack, which also allows very complex vehicles to be defined. Just looking at some other questions now.
Now there's another interesting question here that there is a range of driver skill out there on within the fleet, and different drivers make different turns in the same kinds of vehicles and will end up with different results. And so this person has asked, will the Austroads turning paths take into account the range of driver skills in practice rather than being technically the path that should be taken? I think overall they're probably giving us a fairly conservative result because they take a constant radius, don't they?
They do.
Yeah, whereas a real driver, rather than just starting to turn at the beginning of the turn as shown here in these drawings, is likely to wait a bit longer before starting to turn and then turn more sharply and adjust their radius as they go through the turn. Even novice drivers would probably do that rather than try and maintain the same radius all the way around. And when you do that, you'll end up covering slightly less ground usually. You may end up with a technically wider swept path width, but you may be able to get through a smaller hole or a smaller opening than you can with these turning templates.
Yep.
That's open to discussion, of course, but that's just in our experience of looking at simulations and actual driver behaviour, that's what we've tended to find.
There's also the half-metre clearance as well, which you don't really want to be using as a backup, but it might be an option as well.
Yes.
And regarding that half-metre clearance, I've got a comment here saying that the half-metre clearance, which is in the turning templates, is different from AS 2890.1, which shows a minimum of 0.3 metres. So, and asking why have we made that decision. So the Austroads Guide to Road Design, it's not a regulatory guide, it's more of a best practice style. Recommends a half-metre clearance, and that's been agreed upon by various state road authorities and the members of the Austroads, what would it be, the Road Design Review Panel?
Probably, yes.
And they've chosen a half-metre, so we just went with that to provide consistency between Austroads documentation.
If you were really arguing it in tight circumstances, then you may be able to fall back to the standard and get away with a lesser clearance, but that would all have to be interpreted on a case-by-case basis.
Continuation from Chris. Yeah. So Chris has just asked whether it mentioned that he's had a lot of requests to show a Super B double turn, and is there any chance of developing a template, or is there a similar one that can be used? Well, I suppose we don't really have a...
those long B doubles really come up as a level 3 PBS vehicle when you do a turn.
Yep.
So that makes them probably similar to the B triple, do you think?
Yeah. As an approximation.
If you can get a B triple through a turn, then you'll probably get one of those long B doubles through it.
Yeah.
So that's a quick way to get out of it. The alternative, though, is for us to make another turning template or do some assessments for you to help out with route assessment wherever you need it done.
Yeah. So yeah, we can create a turning template outside of the updated Austroads guide, which might take a while if you need them quickly.
It can be done.
It can be done.
Yes. The Australian standard that was brought up before mentioning the 0.3 metre clearance was Australian standard 2890.1.
0.1 in this particular one.
To do with parking or signage or something? I can't remember what it was.
I think that's parking.
Yeah. Anyway, someone just asked that which standard it was. Now someone else has just asked, can we use the Austroads turning templates to design for car park layouts? You can for manoeuvring around the car park, because they're really for when you're moving the cars at a fairly normal speed, at around a walking pace or more. But when a driver is actually trying to get a car into a garage or into a parking space, they generally will be happy to take it very slowly and carefully and maybe have 2 bites at it, and so they can fit into a tighter space than these turning templates will usually show you. So if you use these turning templates on a car park, you'll definitely end up with a car park that should work. People will be able to fit in, the vehicles won't get stuck, but usually people are going to try and make car parks smaller than that. If you're in a council, you'll have applications coming in for much tighter parking provision than what you would usually be able to get one of these vehicles through with a template.
As I understand it, the Australian Standard 2890 has some recommendations anyway, for design.
Yeah, and if it's similar to what we were just talking about, I would say that it would be less restrictive
than using the turning templates.
And just to clarify, when I was talking about long B doubles and B triples, what I was saying in that answer was that the B triple vehicles that we have produced templates for here are essentially level 3 PBS vehicles. They'll be in a range very similar to the results you would get when turning with a long B double. Because whenever we have done assessments on long B doubles, we've found they don't pass level 2 of PBS, they pass level 3, and that is very similar to a B triple vehicle or a type 1 road train. And so yes, if you use the B triple template, you'll probably be pretty close. And we can do some checks on individual sites if you need that done as well.
Okay, we've just got another comment about AS2890 from Andrew Greenwood, who's just clarifying what that standard is for, and he said that it's for off-road parking loading bay manoeuvring, and so the clearances can be lower than the on-road ones, and that the AS2890 also has some reversing templates, although not for B doubles or triples, so that might solve the reversing template question that the previous person had.
Yeah, someone was asking also about cars towing trailers.
Oh yes.
We've got the car in there.
You don't.
It's a template, not a car and trailer, do it?
No.
But it should be very similar to the car, because usually a basic car trailer. This was an earlier question from back when we were still speaking. I'll just read it again. Yeah, caravans, boat trailers on local roads. Unfortunately, that person has left according to the list here, but we'll send the answer back to them anyway. And for the benefit of the rest of you, when you've got a short trailer, such as a 6-foot box trailer behind a car, you don't have to provide much extra space, and it's generally going to follow almost in the path of the car. It's narrower than the car, and if you can clear something with the car, then you're probably going to clear it with the trailer. But once you get longer, when you put a boat on or have a caravan, then things do get different, and that is not accounted for in these turning templates. So it's possibly a suggestion for the future, because there are more and more caravans on the road now, I find. And they will be quite interesting to get into some of the places where we've said that cars will get into with these templates.
Yeah. I suppose the turning templates are mainly used for road design rather than low-speed manoeuvring, which most caravans would be.
Yeah, and most of the time the roads are designed for trucks, especially garbage trucks. And if you can fit a heavy rigid garbage truck into a street, then you can also fit a car and a caravan. Right. Any more questions popping up?
I think we've actually run out of time.
Yeah, that's true. We're getting right up to the end now.
So I think we shall close it there. Thank you everyone for coming. If you've got any questions that we haven't answered, we'll try to reply to those. If you've got any further questions that you think of later, feel free to contact me. My contact details are on the slide. And thank you for coming.
Thank you.